Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. My name is Harriet Lai, and I'll be leading this workshop. And then we'll also have Jaden, who is will also be helping lead this workshop. So this workshop is called Crazy About Cells, and you'll be learning about the cell and what it does, how it functions, and what it is made of, as well as we'll be having a competition and during the second half where you will just test your biology knowledge. So I guess before we begin, I was thinking we could get to know each other by stating your name, grade, and a fun fact about yourself. So I'll start. So again, my name is Harriet Lai. I am a freshman, and fun fact about me is that biology is my favorite subject. Jaden, would you like to go next?
I'm Jaden. I'm also a freshman, and a fun fact is that I play the trumpet. Yes. Ethan, you wanna go next?
Oh yeah. So I'm Natham. I'm also a freshman. A fun fact about me, I was born in Missouri, but I've lived in California for way longer.
So next, so how our workshop will work is it's divided into 3 sections or 3 parts. So for the first about 20 minutes, we will be going over a lecture part where you will learn all about the cell, and this will be taught by both me and Jaden. And then next, we will do an interactive cell model for about 5 to 10 minutes, where you just explore what the cell and what's in a cell. And then finally, we have what is also between the cell model and the next part, we will also be taking a short break, and then finally we will be doing the cell biology bowl, which I think is the funnest part. And this is kind of like a competition where you answer questions about biology and some other topics as well. So is there a question? Okay, cool. So before we move on, are there any questions about the stuff we're going to cover and what we're going to do?
If you guys have any questions, feel free to just shout them out or put them in the chat.
Yeah. If not, then we can get started. So first part will be the lecture. So I have a quick question before we start. So what is a cell? Is it A, the building blocks of life, B, the smallest units of life, C, something that makes up all living organisms, D, all of the above? So just type in the chat what you think is the answer, and don't worry if you don't know, because by the end of this workshop, you will be able to answer this question. So I'm seeing a lot of D's, and let's see if you're correct. Yes, so that is correct. D, all of the above. So like a cell is the building block of life, the smallest unit of life, and also something that makes up all living organisms, which means that you and I are made out of cells, your pets are made out of cells, your friends are made out of cells, the food you eat are made out of cells, and many more things are made out of cells. Like in the last slide, I said that the cell is the smallest unit that can live and survive on its own, and it also makes up all of the living organisms, such as plants, animals, and tissues in the body, such as your skin, muscle, and other different types of organs, such as your stomach, your heart, your brain, and etc. And there are 3 main parts of a body. The first one being the cell membrane, which is basically a layer that surrounds the entire cell. Then you have the nucleus, which is a what you call an organelle or part of the cell, which is the control center of the cell. So it controls everything that happens in the cell and what goes out of a cell. And then you have this
How about it's called? How about it's like the brain of the cell?
If it's a brain cell,
No, is it like a brain? Is like the
wait, sorry, asking like what about brain cell?
I
Sorry,
think he said like if the nucleus is like the brain of the cell.
so yeah, so the brain of the cell is basically like a nucleus because the nucleus contains something called the DNA, which is basically a type of like code or something that provides instructions for the cell to follow and also for like your entire body to follow. And that's in the nucleus, which is, yeah, you can call it the brain of the cell. And then the last part of the cell would be the cytoplasm, which is a type of fluid or subtype of solution that fills up the cell and is where a lot of the parts or parts of the cell are located. And so there are other parts of the cell that we will go over, though these will be the three main parts that you should remember. Okay, so here is a diagram of the cell. This photo is it's a diagram of an animal cell, which is a cell that makes up animals and also us humans. And so this first part, which you can see is this thin, darker orange yellow color that goes around the entire cell. This is what you call the cell membrane. Then you have the nucleus, which is this big purple part with all these string or line, and that is where the DNA is. And then finally, you have the cytoplasm, which is the liquid or solution that is found all over the cell. As you can see, it's everywhere around the cell, and it basically fills up the cell. And you can see there are a lot of different, many different other parts that we will go over later in this presentation, but those you can see and get to know. So Tim, you put a question, are those chromosomes? So for those of you that don't know, chromosomes are kind of like what, it's basically DNA that is bundled up into DNA that is bundled up together so that it's turns into a tight, compact structure called a chromosome. And right now, it's not a chromosome because right now the DNA is all like loose and all in like string-like. And you might learn this later on, but there's something called like a cell like when cells, when they duplicate or multiply, that's when the DNA would turn into chromosomes. You don't have to know that now, but yeah, you will learn that maybe later when you learn more about cell and cell division. Yeah, so. And yes, that's correct. The duplicating process is called mitosis. And we will move on to the next slide. So, is there a question? Okay, cool. So here's a fun fact. So the word cell was coined by a scientist named Robert Hooke in 1665, where he put it in a book he published called Micrographia. So that's how you get the word cell, and that's a word we use today to describe this, the smallest unit of life. Okay, so there are two major types of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So the difference, how they are similar is that they both have DNA, which again is like the code or the instruction for the cell and the body. They also both have a membrane, which is the material or layer that wraps around the entire cell. They also both have cytoplasm, which again is the solution that fills up a cell, as well as ribosomes, which is something you'll learn later, but it is something that is used to make the protein, which is what you need to for the cell. Protein is an important thing for the cell. It's something the cell makes, and it's something that it's important for your body. And so that's what the ribosomes are for. So the difference between the two is that eukaryotes, they have a nucleus, which as I showed before, is kind of like in a way, a circle or a spear type part or organelle, which wraps around the DNA, and so it kind of protects the code or the DNA. While in prokaryotes, they don't have a nucleus. The DNA is just all around the cell and not protected like in the eukaryote. So some examples of eukaryotes are animal cells, plant cells, and also fungi cells. Those are all eukaryotes, eukaryotic cells. And then some prokaryotic cells are bacteria and archaea. And archaea is similar to bacteria, but they're a little different. And so those are prokaryotic cells. And so here, as you can see, is the difference between a prokaryote and eukaryote. So as you can see, they both share a cell membrane. They both have ribosomes. And but you can see, like, for example, here in prokaryotes, the DNA does not have something around it, like in eukaryotes, which have the nucleus, and then that's where the DNA would go. While in the prokaryotes, DNA is just found in the cytoplasm, and it's not what you call membrane bounded. And then there are some other differences, as you can see, and you'll learn about the different stuff in a eukaryotic cell later in this presentation. Okay, so one more question before I let Jaden show you the rest of the slides. So can you guess about how many cells are in our body right now? Put your guess into the chat and we will see who is the closest. So we have guess 724 trillion. We have another guess of several trillion, 2 trillion. So yeah, 15 trillion. So yeah, I can see it. It's like in most people are guessing in the trillions range, 16 trillion, 200 billion. Oh, 999 trillion. Another 724 trillion. Okay, so these are all pretty good guesses, and the correct answer is 724 trillion cells in our human body. So yeah, that's a lot of cells that are in our body. And good job for those who got the correct answer or were close to it. And now I'll hand it over to Jaden, who would talk more about a cell, what it does. So.
Okay, so we'll be first talking about the functions of a cell. So what does a cell exactly do? The cell first makes up the structure of the body. It also takes nutrients from our food to use as energy, and includes the DNA, which is where all genetic code is stored. And then there's specialized functions depending on what type of cell it is. If it's a neuron, it sends signals to other neurons like a way of communicating. If it's a muscle cell, it helps you move your body, breathe, touch, and many more. And then if it's a skin cell, it protects the body from outside particles. So next, we'll look at the overview of parts of a cell. Harriet, is it the next slide already? Sorry, I'm lagging a bit.
Yeah.
Cell is like a factory with many parts. There's a nucleus, or like the head of the company. A cytoplasm is like the floor of the factory. The cell membrane, which is security. The endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER, as the assembly line, ribosomes, who are like the workers, the Golgi apparatus, which is like the finishing and packaging department, the lysosomes, which is the cleanup crew, and then mitochondria, which is the power plant. Next. So we're gonna be going down the supply chain, or all the people in the factory, more in detail now. So first is the nucleus and cytoplasm. The nucleus is where the DNA is stored. The DNA is the genetic code that tells the cell and your body what to do or build, which is basically like the CEO who's in charge of the factory. The cytoplasm is the solution that's made out of water, salts, and proteins that fill up the cell, and all of the organelles are found in the cytoplasm. So this is like the factory floor or the factory itself that contains everything and where everything occurs. Next, we have the cell membrane and endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER. The cell membrane basically decides, wait, is it next?
Right, yeah, that's the next slide.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see that. They decide what can come into the cell and what can come out of the cell, including proteins and other products that the cell produces, just like the security. So the endoplasmic reticulum is where the ribosomes are located, which create the proteins, just like the assembly line where the workers work. Next. Next are the ribosomes and Golgi apparatus. So ribosomes they make the proteins and are basically like the workers which make the product. The Golgi apparatus is where the final touches are made for proteins and are packaged so that they can leave the cell. It's like the finishing and packaging department. Harriet, there's a question for you in the chat. What does DNA in a cell do? I think you should.
Yeah, so the DNA is at the genetic code. So a genetic code, as in like it's kind of like it's kind of like instructions, or like that. Yeah, it's instructions that tell what the cell should do. For example, what type of proteins the cell should make, whether it should go into a mitosis, or go into duplicate itself, or whether it should do lots of different things. And it kind of like gives the cell its functions and what the purpose of the cell is. It is where all the DNA is where you get from the DNA, and just the DNA is kind of all the information about the cell, what it does, how it works, and many more. So it's really important, and therefore that's why it's in the nucleus, and that's why the nucleus is the control center. Hopefully that answers your question. And if there are any other questions, we can continue.
So I'm going to go on to lysosomes and mitochondria. So lysosomes, these organelles break down particles and things that the cell is finished using or doesn't need, basically the cleanup crew. The mitochondria is where the energy is created, which is basically the power plant. So you may have heard that the mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell. Okay, so then next we have an animal cell structure. So basically you can see this is very similar to the ones we've seen before, and you can see everything we've mentioned, like the mitochondria, nucleus, the cytoplasm, the Golgi apparatus. So this is just a diagram that basically encompasses everything we've just talked about.
Yeah, just to add on to it, there's some stuff that we haven't mentioned too, like peroxisome, or vacuole, and microtubules, and those you can also explore more about, but the ones we talked about are some of the more important ones. And so yeah, if you want, you can always go and research what the other organelles are. Okay, great. So yeah, that is our lecture section of the workshop. So now we'll be going into the interactive cell model, which I will give you the link, which I'll give you the link to the website for. And in this website, you can basically explore different types of the different organelles or the different parts of both a plant and animal cell. Just to clarify, the difference between a plant and animal cell is that, well, one, plants are made out of plant cells, animals are made out of animal cells, but there are also some like different, so they have like some different parts. Most of the parts of the animal and plant cell are the same.
Plant cells have cell walls, but animal cells don't.
Yes, that is correct. So yeah, one of the more important differences is that plant cell has a cell wall, animal cell doesn't, and their other stuff like a plant cell has what you call chloroplasts, and they're kind of like the mitochondria in the animal cell, in that they both provide the energy for the cell. And yes. So I have a question. Can you go back to the previous slide? So yes. But yeah, here. So here's the previous slide, and also another question: what do cells look like? So this is a model of a cell. Usually, like an actual cell would be like super small. You would need to have like a very strong microscope to see. But in this diagram, it kind of shows what a cell looks like. It's not like super round like this one, but one of that shape, and it has all the different parts like the nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, lysosome, and other parts that you can see in this diagram. So yeah, that's what a cell is and looks like. And is there any other questions? And then before we move on. Okay, cool. So, okay, so for the interactive cell model, yeah. So in this website, you can explore both a plant and animal cell. Right now, you can focus more on the animal cell, but if you want, you can also check out the plant cell. And we will be spending about 5 to 10 minutes on this. And this will be also the time where we will be taking a short break. And so if you want to go to like a restroom or get a quick snack, feel free to do so during this time. So now I will send you the link to the model. Let me know if you have any questions or you have trouble accessing this website. So yeah, if you click on it, you should be able to see choose between a plant or animal cell on the bottom. So I'll go click animal cell, and you can go through each, there are different parts you can look at, and you can also hover over it and check it out as well. So yeah, we'll be doing that for until 4:36, and then we will come back and start the cell biology goal. So yeah, see you then.